You're looking at the next generation of fuel ignition technology. It's called Pulstar, a pulse plug that represents a quantum leap over spark plug technology. Tests show that Pulstar plugs will give your vehicle more horsepower, more torque for towing, and better gas mileage. Plus, Pulstar plugs will actually pay for themselves in 12 months and then start saving you money. The spark plug has existed in one form or another for over 100 years. But the fact is, most of today's spark plugs, aside from being more durable, are virtually the same as the early spark plugs. And believe it or not, most spark plugs still have a peak output of only 50 measly watts of power, generated by a small spark, resulting in incomplete fuel combustion and loss of potential horsepower, torque, and fuel economy. But the Pulstar changes all that with the first major advance in spark plug technology in over a century. As you can see, Pulstar has a spark much larger than spark plugs, because instead of maxing out at 50 watts of power, pulse plugs produce a whopping 1 million watts of power, 20,000 times more than spark plugs. Pulstar ignites the fuel more completely and more precisely than spark plugs, resulting in overall gains in horsepower, torque, and fuel economy. The secret to the Pulstar difference is that unlike spark plugs, Pulstar Pulse Plugs contain an integral pulse circuit that stores incoming electrical energy from the ignition system and releases the stored energy in a powerful burst of power in 2 billionths of a second. Spark plugs can't do that. And since spark plugs don't have this pulse circuit, they wind up wasting electrical energy from the ignition system by heating ignition components. More electrical energy and a larger spark corona mean that Pulstar Pulse Plugs burn more of the fuel, resulting in increased cylinder pressure, which pushes the piston down with more force, generating more torque and power to the wheels. The result is greater horsepower and fuel economy. And as a side benefit, fewer hydrocarbons escape to the exhaust, making vehicles with Pulstar Pulse Plugs more environmentally friendly. Tests at an independent research laboratory have confirmed the dramatic difference in side-by-side comparisons that show pulse plugs burn fuel more completely, because the Pulstar Spark has 20,000 times the peak power of spark plugs. Other tests on several different vehicle types show average 0 to 60 times are 10% faster. Torque is increased by nearly 10%, and fuel economy up to 12%. Don't just take our word for it. Listen to these satisfied Pulstar customers.
Well, I think the Pulsar has got something that no other spark plug or no other electronic component has for your vehicle. It's simple to put in, it replaces something that's old technology, and it'll help you in all elements of your driving. Low end torque, acceleration, it'll improve your fuel economy.
Having a race car, you become very attuned to the performance of the engine. Any changes that take place, you're well aware of. I noticed after putting them in the car that there was a marked difference. I could feel the engine was much more responsive. And any gain you make in a race car, just any at all, makes a big difference in the end of the race. So I was very impressed with it.
My main focus was in the installation in a work truck that I use for work and pleasure. This work truck routinely pulls heavy loads, whether it's construction equipment, farm equipment, and then I also pull a fully loaded 4-horse trailer around the country as well. And the performance was quite noticeable with the new plugs installed. Under severe loads, that's usually when a lack of horsepower will show, and there was absolutely no hesitation with the truck, and the power performance was very noticeable.
If you're interested in gaining more horsepower, Pulstar Pulse Plugs are the most cost-effective way to add horsepower to almost any vehicle. So Pulstar Pulse Plugs should be the starting place in your quest for more power. It's a great complement to any aftermarket performance technology. And one of the best things about Pulse Plug is that they're easy to install. Just like spark plugs, they're absolutely the easiest and most economical way to add horsepower, torque, and fuel economy to any vehicle. Here are a couple of additional quick points that you might want to know about Pulstar Pulse Plugs. Pulstar Pulse Plugs last about as long as most spark plugs, about 50,000 miles. And since the high power of Pulstar Pulse Plugs occurs within 2 billionths of a second, it won't overheat engine parts. And Pulstar Pulse Plugs are designed to work with most aftermarket products like ignition systems, air intakes, and exhaust headers. If you have installed any aftermarket performance equipment, call our technical hotline for additional information. In addition, Pulstar Pulse Plugs will not harm your engine's main computer because it is a resistor plug that is designed to prevent both radio frequency interference and electromagnetic interference. And finally, Pulstar plugs come with a 30-day, no questions asked, money-back guarantee. If for any reason you're not satisfied with your Pulstar plugs, simply return them within 30 days, along with proof of purchase for a full refund. And that's the inside story on Pulstar Pulse Plugs, the first real advancement in ignition technology since the spark plug was invented over 100 years ago. They're the fastest, easiest, and most economical way to increase horsepower, torque, and fuel economy on your vehicle. And with the increased fuel economy, Pulstar Pulse Plugs will pay for themselves within 12 months. We guarantee that once you try a set of Pulstar Pulse Plugs, you're going to love the difference they make in your driving experience, because they're literally more bang for your buck than you've ever seen.